Don't waste time in your asylum interview on things that don't actually matter. There are three things that asylum applicants tend to focus on at their interviews, three things that they genuinely believe will help them that the officer honestly just doesn't care about. In fact, you're just going to annoy the officer when you try to force these things into the conversation. And look, when you focus on these three particular things, you're burning precious time that you'll never get back. You're missing opportunities to make a real impact with your testimony. Well, I'm going to break down today exactly what those three things are, and I'm going to tell you what to do instead so that you maximize your chances for asylum success. And we're starting right now. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, well, my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Now, let me know in the comments if you've got an asylum interview coming up, or if maybe you've already had one. And look, also, I'd especially like to hear from you. If you've been waiting for your asylum interview for a long time, let me know in the comments how long you've been waiting. All right, so let's talk about the three things that asylum applicants think that the asylum officer cares about, but the officer really doesn't. So number one is this: trying to convince the officer that you're a good person who deserves to be here. I've seen this so many times. So the applicant sits down and they want the officer to understand that, they're a hard worker, that their kids are in school here, that they've been paying their taxes, they volunteer at their church maybe, they've never been in trouble with the law, all of this, right? They want the officer to see them as a sympathetic figure, someone who has clearly suffered and who clearly belongs in the United States. The kind of person who one day will make a great US citizen. And look, I completely get why people do this. It's understandable. I mean, you want the officer to like you. You want them to look across the desk and feel something, to create an emotional connection. But here is what you need to understand, okay? Asylum officers, they're not deciding whether you're a good person, okay? They're not deciding whether you deserve to live in the United States based on your character or your contributions or anything like that. That's just not their job, okay? And honestly, no matter how much an officer personally likes you or maybe feels bad for you, they cannot grant your asylum case on that basis. You see, they would be violating their own adjudication standards if they were to do so. Now, the officer's job, the only thing they're actually evaluating is whether you suffered past persecution or have a well-founded fear of future persecution on account of one of the 5 protected grounds under U.S. asylum law. And those protected grounds are your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or something called membership in a particular social group. That's the legal standard, okay? That's the box the officer is trying to check. How long you've been here, how much your community loves you, how good you are at your job. None of that moves the needle on the legal question of your asylum eligibility. And every minute that you spend trying to win the officer over as a person is a minute that you're not spending on the facts that actually decide your case. So stay focused on the legal elements, okay? That's where cases get won. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success, then please be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the insights that I share on this channel. All right, number 2 concerns documents, and specifically, I'm talking about the applicant who submits their filing or shows up to the interview with a massive stack of country conditions reports. So every news article they could find, the last 8 years worth of human rights reports from the Department of State, maybe copious reports showing that their country is, dangerous. The government is corrupt and people are being harmed. Well, look, I understand the instinct here completely. More country conditions information makes it feel like a stronger case. But the reality is that the officer is not going to read all of that, okay? There's simply no time. Back when I was adjudicating cases as an asylum officer with USCIS, well, I was doing 2 interviews a day. These days, officers are doing 3 interviews per day, and that's overwhelming, okay? There's just no time to work through hundreds or sometimes even thousands of pages of country conditions reports. What actually gets read ahead of your interview is a tight legal brief written by your attorney, one that pulls out the most relevant parts of those country conditions reports and explains exactly why they matter to your specific case. Not just, my country is dangerous, but rather, here is this specific finding, and here is exactly why it demonstrates that someone with your profile is at risk, okay? That analysis is what the officer can actually use, and that's what they're likely to engage with. You see, the documents themselves don't do the work. The analysis does. All right, number 3, and this is a really common one. Number 3 is trying to give the officer a history lesson about your home country during the interview itself. So I've seen this too many times. The officer asks you a question and your instinct is to say, well, first, let me give you some background. Or, well, officer, you need to understand the history here to really get what I'm saying. And then you're off. The political situation, the ethnic tensions, the historical relationship between your community and the government, all of this, right? The context is real and the history genuinely does matter, all right? But from where I used to sit as an asylum officer, that approach is genuinely frustrating, okay? You see, the officer asked a specific question and they want a specific answer. When applicants pivot into background information or history every time a question gets asked, well, officers get impatient fast. They'll cut you off, the tone of the interview shifts, and not in your favor. So here's what you have to understand. It's not your job to provide that context at the interview. In that moment, well, the officer is there to hear about you, your story, your experience, what happened to you personally, and why that connects to one of those 5 protected grounds I listed off earlier. What's in question is what happened to you specifically and why you remain at risk going forward. Now, look, to be clear, I'm not saying context doesn't matter, because it does matter, but the historical, societal context that supports your case, that stuff belongs in your written filings, prepared in advance before you ever sit down across from the asylum officer. And that's where it gets laid out properly, all right? Tied directly to your situation and put in front of the officer before the interview even starts. You got to do this in a form that can actually be absorbed easily by the officer. At the interview itself, your job is simple. Answer the questions, stick to your story, and tell the officer what happened to you and why you remain at risk, while crafting your answers to ensure that you show the officer how you meet all of the asylum eligibility requirements. That's your job at the interview. So how do you actually get all of this right? I mean, the legal framing, the country conditions analysis, the historical context, all of this stuff, right? How do you do it well and get it in front of the officer in the right format before the interview? Well, that's what our asylum roadmap is for. At my law firm, we call it a roadmap because it lays out the complete path of your case, okay? Where you've been, what you face, and exactly why you qualify for asylum under US law. It's basically like a map for the officer. It shows them how to get to the answer yes in your case in the absolute easiest way possible. Now, there are 4 elements in an asylum roadmap, and they are your personal declaration, supporting evidence, country conditions, research information, and a legal brief. And that legal brief ties it all together, okay, into one cohesive picture. The brief is where your attorney does the analytical work the officer actually needs, so that by the time you're sitting across the desk from the officer, the groundwork has already been laid, okay? If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, call my office today. That number is 713-909-0401. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you live. Call us right now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you to secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's truly an honor to support you in your asylum journey.